So, welcome to another episode of Ascension with A Course in Miracles. And today is October the 16th. And today we are looking at this is episode 168. If you want to see the previous episodes, and they're all about A Course in Miracles, whether they be text or lessons, I always just look on, I study and read what is placed on my heart to share with humanity. And a message then gets transmitted through me that is whatever it is that we're supposed to hear. And I absolutely share this information and I go, oh my gosh, note to self, I've got to go back and reread that one or rewatch or re-listen because the messages are so important. They're for me as much as they are for everybody else, because we are one. So we are receiving at the lower levels of consciousness information from higher frequency, from higher consciousness, whether it be the beings that we know as Jesus, which is what happens through me when I share for A Course in Miracles, or whether we're receiving information from Archangel Michael or Gabriel or Raphael or Adamus. It doesn't matter. Cryon. There are so many humans right now that have opened themselves up to be vessels that are transmitting these truths, these high frequency truths that we need to listen to. And the reason we need to listen to them is because they're assisting us in gaining a clearer understanding of what's happening. And a while back, I used to do a podcast. It was called Align with Laina, and I would interview just ordinary people who were going through entering their spiritual awakening, having some experiences with shifting their perspective. And when we shift our perspective, we're aligning with something else. Course in Miracles teaches us about aligning with God. So that means that we are letting go of our alignment with ego. We're shifting to the higher frequencies of God. And I wanted to share before I take it down that I had a poster redone. I've been teaching from this poster for years. I used to manually draw this particular chart in my classes, in my workshops. And then eventually I got to put it on a poster so I wouldn't have to keep drawing it all the time. But anyway, especially as I was doing my classes via online, and it just became easier just to put a poster up there. So I started with this one. And I always would explain, this is not like just a cone like this. This is a spiral. So recently I did another poster and I used the spiral. As a matter of fact, is the poster that's behind this one. And I put a spiral in there and I thought, okay, let me switch this up and let me just have the one the one spiral. And anyhow, so I have switched this up, letting all our friends come on in here. So good to have you guys joining us. Oh, I'm so happy to see you guys here. Anyways, so as I was saying, I just switched this poster and I'm going to be using the spiral because we're on a spiral. Our process of being a human is really the best way to look at it is as a spiral. From the top, the spiral is a circle and then it enters one point. You can look at lots of things out in there in nature and you see that spiral. So what the mind does is that from a place of conscious awareness, when we are connected to all that is, we are at the widest point. We are one with all that is. But then the mind begins to wind itself inward and it begins to collapse on itself and it begins to become a very, very contracted experience of itself. So I'm going to retire the cone because I don't want to continue to tell people it's not a cone, but it looks like a cone. It's really a spiral. So there we go. So this is the last time you're going to see this. Now, everything about A Course in Miracles is about understanding what happens to us when we are operating at the highest frequencies and our mind has expanded to accept more of the truth of who we are, we are in a state of expansion. And from there, anybody who achieves a level of frequency for curiosity to be, curiosity requires courage, because for two reasons. One is you're going against society. You're curious about something that society may say no. So for example, if you grow up in a family that's conservative and then you want to become more of a liberal, it takes courage to go against your family. If you grow up Catholic and you want to become Jewish or become or study Judaism or Hinduism or something different, you have to have courage, because you got to tell your family, you know what, I respect you, but I want to do what I want to do. So that's one level of courage, is you're going against the norm. The other level of courage, which is harder, is you have to override yourself. You have to make a commitment to say, well, just because I believe that doesn't mean it's true. Just because I choose this candidate doesn't mean that that's the best one. It's the one that I think is best for me. The process of waking up is a very challenging journey for everybody, because you have to have the courage, number one, to go against what the norm is in society, but then you have to learn to override yourself, and that requires courage. It's very difficult to say, well, maybe I'm wrong. That requires a very mature, comfortable mind that has recognized, I don't know it all. And once you don't know it all, because if you're in that spiral and you're wound up into, if you're not in the big part of it and you're wound up into the little part of this, if you were to look at this from the top down, if you're wound up tight and you think you know it all, you don't know much, but you're convincing yourself that you already know it all. And if you don't question your own thoughts, then you don't have the courage to move beyond what you know. You're going to be stuck doing the same thing, expecting different results. The definition of insanity. But the Course in Miracles requires that we become courageous, and the courage that we are being invited to, and you guys are more familiar with this one, is the courage to recognize that there are two belief systems. And if you are thinking with God, well, you're good, you're golden, you are operating already in love, joy, and peace. You have a little bit of ego because you're a human. And as long as we're in a human body and we think that we're separate from one another, there is a level of ego there, because ego is what allows us to believe in separation. Without ego, there's no separation. There is an awareness of individualized expressions, but there is no separation. So for somebody who operates with God, you're already operating in love. You have zero fear. Now, when you have fear, if you are on this journey and you are committed, you're serious about this journey, you're committed to liberation, every single time you have a fearful thought, you have to have the courage to question, why am I thinking that? Why am I afraid of this? Why am I afraid to go out? Why am I afraid of the diagnosis? Why am I afraid of, the headline in the news? Why am I afraid of what my child said? Why am I afraid of whatever it is? Without courage, we don't question our fears. As a matter of fact, it's because we have been turned into scary people, very, what's the word? When we don't have courage, we're basically compliant people. And we have been made more and more compliant because of our fear to question authority, to question what somebody that we deem knows more than us tells us. So humanity, as we've been talking about in these conversations here for quite a while, humanity is in a place where we are being bombarded with opportunities to question, to get curious, because you cannot move out of your lower frequencies without curiosity, because curiosity is what opens the door to what else is there. And the Course in Miracles is all about there's got to be another way. And the human aspect of the ego that keeps us stuck in the same old, can do that because we are so conditioned not to question authority. That somehow if you question authority, today you're a conspiracy theorist. If you question authority, you are disrespectful. I mean, we learned that don't question your parents, don't question the teachers, don't question the government. You're being disrespectful if you ask a question. So we have been kind of dumbed down. We have been made more immature by the sheer process of losing our curiosity, losing our willingness to question. And if you don't question, you can't have courage, because those two things go hand in hand. And the reason they go hand in hand is courage. If you hear some chomping, as my doggie is chewing on bone of all the times. I mean, she has all day long to lounge around here, but she chooses when I get online to chomp on her bone. I'll take it out next time. But anyways, the word courage comes from the French word cœur. Cœur means heart. To have courage means you have to be willing to open your heart. That means when we're talking spiritually speaking, you need to love yourself enough to question what is holding you in a state of contraction, in a state of limitation. And because everybody who listens to the ego has contracted, has lost the ability to love themselves enough to not suffer, we've got to have courage, meaning we've got to activate our heart again. We've got to come to a place where we learn to love ourselves enough to want to move out of suffering and into the freedom that is experienced when you understand the truth of who you are. So last week we started, as always, oops, let go of that paper. We're always looking at A Course in Miracles, and we started chapter 31 in the text. Chapter 31 is called The Final Vision. Now, last week, I highly recommend anybody who didn't watch last week to look at last week's episode 167. This one today is 168, and they're all on my YouTube channel and on my Facebook page whenever I'm not banned. Facebook, I got in trouble with Facebook last week, so they wouldn't let me post episode 167. I know I was banned for 6 days. I couldn't post certain things. Anyway, so I think I'll be able to post it today when I also post 168. But in last week's 167, I gave a general overview of what we had already looked at in the previous year and a half that it took us to go through chapter 30. And chapter 30 is titled The New Beginning. And we had to look at specific things that we have to be clear about in order to have a new beginning. And now chapter 31 is the final vision. And this is just teaching us in section number 1 that we're in is teaching us about the simplicity of salvation. And salvation is very simple. It really, truly is. And it starts with how simple is salvation. All it says is what was never true is not true now and never will be. To save yourselves, to save ourselves, because I'm in the same boat, salvation is simple. Just believe what is true and has always been true and will always be true. God is love. We are one with God. We are made of energy. Every single one of us is in the mind of God. That's why we're energy. Pure consciousness. What we are is not physical. We're having an experience as physical, but we're not physical. All of our suffering comes from believing that we are a body, which is what the ego is all about. And while we think we're a body, that we're separate, that death is real, that we are in battles with each other, that there's lack and limitation, that there's jealousy and all of these things that are part of the ego that allow for war, allow for greed, allow for just unloving things to be done to one another. While you believe that this is real, you are complicating salvation because you're deciding salvation has 2 truths, and it can't be that way. Salvation has one truth, and it is a truth that has always been true. And that is, you're making all this up. And I know from my own personal experience, when I first began to accept the concept. And my journey started 22 years ago, hard to believe, that I created suffering. You've got to be kidding me. That can't possibly be. I'm not going to make myself suffer. Well, because I had the courage to get curious and I began to question my beliefs, I began to sort them out. These beliefs that activated fear always made me feel bad. I never felt good when I thought those thoughts. Never. And my body didn't lie. I could feel the contraction. And then when I thought these thoughts, I felt good. I felt at peace and at ease. I felt expanded. My body felt relaxed. And when I looked at those two things, which is basically this list, I realized there's the ego's world. It's a world of fear. There's God's world. It's a world of love. And it became very simple. It's either love or fear. It's God or ego. This is low frequency. This is high frequency. This translates to that chart. Everything of the ego is low frequency. Everything of God is high frequency. I'm contracted and feeling tight and tense and small. It's me against the world, or I am expanded and I'm one with all that is. And from that place of recognizing that I am one with all that is, then we accept, oh, I chose to experience being human. I chose to incarnate, meaning I chose to believe that I'm separate from all that is so I could have this experience with these parents, with these children, with these siblings, with these, in this region of the world, in this ethnic upbringing, in this cultural way of doing things, in this religion, in this political system. I chose to be here. Once we can go, oh, I chose this, then we can relax. And instead of fighting what is, we can relax. And this is where the Course in Miracles wants us to get into a happy dream. Realize, okay, I'm pretending right now that I'm separate from God and I'm supposed to be Laina and I'm a mother and I'm a sister to these people and I'm a parent to those children and I'm grandparent to these. Okay, how do I want to experience this? Do I want to experience it with joy? God says that my purpose is to be happy. Am I going to experience this with happiness, or do I want to create a little drama? Do I want to create a little suffering? Do I want some tension in my life? Okay, let me do that. And how do you create tension? By choosing to listen to the voice of the ego, which means you have to have the courage, because when we descend, we go through the same stages of consciousness. We have to have the courage to say, I am going to shut down listening to God. And we become stubborn. And that takes courage to be stubborn, that it's going to be my way and I'm right and I'm not going to listen to anybody else. And then we practice it and practice it. And of course, society encourages us to agree that they have power, that they are the authority and we don't. So we have the courage to shrink our knowingness into being the finite beings that we consider ourselves to be. But as it says in here, how simple is salvation? Salvation, if you want to reverse the suffering and you want to save yourself, spare yourself suffering, then you've got to let it be simple. Have the courage to question what you believe, because you had the courage to forget what you know. Now you need the courage to remember the truth of who you are, which means you study something like A Course in Miracles, and it's going to take you on a deep dive to question every single thought that you have. And if you're not willing to question your thoughts, then at least be honest with yourself and state the truth, which should be pretty simple. I like suffering. I'm enjoying this suffering. This is like an actor. I'm enjoying playing this role. And maybe I'll get an Oscar for it. Give yourself an Oscar. Everybody gets an Oscar. And let your suffering then be enjoyed by you. But to suffer and then complain about the suffering is a waste of the drama. It's like, enjoy the heck out of it. And it's like being a character in a soap opera. When we make peace that we are a character in a soap opera by our own doing, salvation becomes so simple. So let's get into paragraph number 2. So there is a reason, but confuse it not with difficulty. In the simple things salvation asks you learn. So all of this is nothing more than a manual, a wonderful, these teachings are training our mind to help us question things, to help us shift our perception so that we can begin the process of expanding our awareness out, moving into higher state of consciousness. So it's very clear because it is telling us that there is a reason why the mind doesn't allow things to be simple, but confuse it not with difficulty in the simple things salvation asks you to learn. So yes, the ego confuses things, but do not allow that ego to make it sound like it's not simple to wake up. It's very simple to wake up, but the ego likes to confuse things. It teaches but the very obvious. It merely goes from one apparent lesson to the next in easy steps that lead you gently from one to another with no strain at all. This cannot be confusing, yet you are confused. It's really fascinating over all of the years that I've been teaching now, like 17 years. I've had some students for a very long time. Some I was just talking to one earlier today that I've known. I've been coaching her 10, 12 years, and I've had other clients right now, 8, 9, 10 years. Some I've known for 17 years, from the very beginning that I started. And it really is fascinating how every single one of us makes this process harder than it needs to be. Until we get clear that if we are concerned about the problems and the issues and talking about what went wrong, we are confusing things. We're making things complicated. When we make the decision to allow salvation to be simple, then there's really only one question. What would love do? What would God do? What would Jesus do? I've had some people, this is kind of cute, they'll say, well, what would Laina do? It's really that simple. The ego likes to complicate it. But so-and-so did this to me, and so-and-so, did you watch the news? Did you see what they said? But I don't have the money, or I don't have the freedom, or I don't have the ability, or I know I'm sick, or I'm not whatever. I'm not tall enough, I'm not pretty enough, and I'm single, blah, blah, blah. Ego loves to tell us all the things that allows for the complication of the issue. Always pointing at, but. Salvation is really simple. What does God say? Well, God says you're the creator of your reality. Go to the question, then why am I creating this? Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling? Assess. Are you tight and tense? You're believing the ego. Are you at ease and at peace? You're listening to God. You don't need to do anything. Keep going on doing what you're doing. That has you be at peace and joyful. Nobody comes to coach with me because their life is wonderful. Everybody comes for one of two reasons. Things are pretty bad and they're trying to work their way out. But the more common one is that they're standing in a place that they know, yes, life is okay. It's happening. But I've got all this baggage, all these thoughts that continue to get activate in my mind that I'm ready to let go of, because I want to experience more of the peace and the joy and the awareness that I'm one with all that is. I'm trying to find my place, and how do I participate in being, as the Course calls it, the light of the world. So those are the people that I work best with, because they have had the courage to override their ego, and they're really curious about, how can I listen to God so that I can live my life more in alignment? Meaning, how do I live in a happy dream? That's what the Course teaches about how we can experience a happy dream, because as long as we are in a physical vessel, there's a little ego in there. And we need to stay on top of that. We need to make sure that we recognize the ego part that lets us be a body, but we're not run by it. That's what happens over here. There's always going to be spirit in us, but if the ego runs a show, it's going to be a dark experience. But if we recognize that, okay, I'm a human, I'm in a body, and we take care of the body and we do things for the body, but we're listening to God and we're operating with God, then we are going to experience heaven on earth. We will recognize that the world has no power over us. We have aligned with the authority, and the authority becomes God, not the government, not the medical system, not the education system, not the spouse or the parent or whatever. The authority becomes God. Yes, even a child can override a parent when they are aligned with God. Because when you're listening to God, you're listening to inspiration that is only expanding you to be in service to all that is, because God is always in service to all of itself. And all of itself is expressing through all the bazillion beings that are on the planet. And that doesn't even touch on everything beyond this planet. Once you begin to get clear about who you are, you realize that we're connected to all that is in the extraterrestrial realm. But I won't even get into that. I don't want to confuse anybody here. All right. Speaking of confusing, sentence 5, paragraph 2 says, this cannot be confusing, yet you are confused when you listen to the ego. For somehow you believe that what is totally confused is easier to learn and understand. Think about that. We really believe that what is confusing, what is red tape, what is convoluted somehow makes more sense than what is so simple, you know. But the doctor said this, but the government said this, but the weather did this. Look at all these things that have to happen, that are happening, that are I can't get out of this because I got to get permission from my boss, and my boss has to go to his boss, and we got to fill out the paperwork to get the vacation time and to get the this, and I got to make the reservations, and it gets crazy. I know I lived that world where I was constantly on the hamster wheel, making plans and getting permissions and doing so many things that were quite convoluted. And God's way is so simple. Be at peace. Find that peace within you. You are peace. Activate that. From that place, bring that to the doctor's appointment. From that place, bring that to the job that you're going to. Bring that into your family arguments. Bring that into the education system. Allow yourself the simplicity of tapping into the part in you, as the Course calls it, the Holy Spirit, that always wants what is best for you, that only wants you to be happy. And then, if you are in integrity, if you have already practiced the truth, you've had the courage to discover the truth, you accept that just as you chose to descend and become a human, you are then choosing to ascend and accept that you are more than that. You're accepting that you are a co-creator of your experience. You look at where you are in your life and you accept, this is where I want it to be. Now you don't argue with what is. No more, I wish I would have had this kind of body. I wish I would have had that kind of money. I wish I would have had that kind of looks. I wish I would have had that kind of partner. That goes away. There is a, I am here now. Let me bring my consciousness, my conscious awareness to what is. If I was created to experience happiness, how can I be happy in the midst of this experience? Well, maybe the body hurts. Maybe there's not enough money in the checking account. Maybe somebody just broke up with you. Maybe your home got flooded and you lost everything. You can still bring peace to it. That is why salvation is simple. You are the presence of peace. You can access that if you want to. But you have to have the courage to override the ego that wants to tell you, I need to be stressed out because I just lost everything. I am entitled to my suffering and my grievances because I just got a diagnosis. I am entitled to be upset because so-and-so just broke up with me. If you believe that you're entitled to all of those things, you are. You absolutely are. And nobody's going to say no to you. God is not going to say no to the drama that you're creating, because the drama that you're creating is allowing you to have experiences that are going to be somehow, you will see down the road, important to your trajectory on the path of ascension. And this is called Ascension with A Course in Miracles for a reason. If you have had, if you've made the decision and you have the courage to ascend, you are going on a journey. And that journey will take lifetimes, because we are eternal beings. It doesn't have to be one and done and then that's it. Ascension is a process of constantly questioning your thinking and fine-tuning it as you progress away from the ego, more towards God. And the reason you've got to progress away from the ego is because you're lessening the darkness that you're operating in, and you are expanding the light. If I had a dry erase board, I would little by little erase this. I would take a little bit of this away. And as I erase more of the darkness, which is the lies of the ego, you end up with this automatically. That's why salvation, again, is so simple. So in sentence number 7, it says, what you have taught yourself is such a giant learning feat. It is indeed incredible. I love that. What you have taught yourself is such a giant learning feat. It required a lot of courage to descend, to make ourselves small, to shrink into a tiny mad idea, to shrink into the thinking that is egoic and selfish and painful. It took a lot of courage to come in, to volunteer, to be a human in this incarnation. It is a giant learning feat. How amazing that you were willing to believe so many lies, turn everything upside down, create this convoluted universe that power exists outside of you when it's always within you, that you're born and you die and that's all you are, when in reality you're an eternal being, that we are, alone, and we need somebody to love us, otherwise we'll be miserable when you are one with all that is. I mean, so many things that we have to make up, that we are bodies when what we are is just energy, and that we are at the mercy of what happens in the family when you are the creator of all that is. So it really is amazing that we make up all of these things and believe them. So then it goes on to say in sentence number 8, but you accomplished it because you wanted to, and did not pause in diligence to judge it hard to learn, or too complex to grasp. Look at that. You accomplished it because you wanted to. We didn't stop when we were incarnating to say, oh, it's going to be difficult to learn. Oh, it's going to be so difficult, too complex to grasp. Oh my gosh, I can't do this. No, we made it easy. We made it so easy. We just simply decided, I'm going to come in to this man and this woman. I'm going to be born through that portal, and I'm going to forget everything that I know. I'm going to create a veil, and that veil will keep me from remembering. So I come in as a baby, and my mind just doesn't have a whole lot of information. The brain is not developed. It doesn't have neurological pathways, but the energy field still has themes that we're going to be exploring, be they the theme of abandonment, or the theme of rejection, or the theme of not good enough, not wanted, or whatever it might be. So those parents give us those opportunities to experience those themes. But we don't remember that we chose to come in and experience those themes. We think we were victims of circumstances, and nothing could be further than the truth. You're the creator, the master creator of your reality. So again, you accomplished it because you wanted to. That is stated here in this final chapter of the text. Because if you don't understand by now, if you don't accept that you have created your reality, you're still under the illusion of the ego. Your mind is still too solidified in the story of limitation, in the story of victimization, to be able to experience the final vision, to move into that final stage, because we're at the completion of the first part of the ascension process. The Course in Miracles tells us this is not a book that tells us you're done with this and that's it. You've accomplished, you've achieved it. It tells us we're done with one stage. Now we're at the beginning of another one. We are at the beginning of something else. What is that something else? Well, we got to stay curious. We got to always operate from a sense of curiosity and activate that courage to stay open. God, what would you have me know? What else is there that is going to be helpful to me? I want to know what's next. I take me on this journey. So we got to become like little children again, curious and excited, not children whose minds have been shut down by society, by propaganda, by government, by religion, told to think what they're supposed to believe and what they're supposed to do and what they're supposed to have and acquire to become somebody. That is taught to us by parents who don't themselves remember the truth of who they are. And those of us who are waking up need to go back to childhood and forgive those who knew not what they were doing, or who knew only what they were doing and thought that and recognize that they did the best that they could with what they had. And each of us has to stand independent of what was taught to us. Mother, father, you did the best that you could. Now, I don't agree with most of what you shared because of what I have discovered. I have the courage to say, I love you still. And if it bothers you that I'm not going to participate in your religion or your political party or your fears or your condemnations and judgments of others, that's okay. I still love you. Why? Because I know that you are creating your reality, how you want to experience it. And if you want to be angry and mad or sick and depressed, good for you. You're creating whatever it is that you want to experience. And because I'm creating what I want to experience, I am staying open-minded. I want to know more. I want to understand, I want to understand the history of the 200,000 years that it has taken humanity to drop into such a tight spiral. Humanity is just beginning to get out of here. As a collective, humanity is barely at this low frequency, which, when you understand frequencies, if you look at the book Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins, he lays out the map of consciousness. That's what that is. He lays out the frequencies, the levels of consciousness that we have to go through. So humanity is operating at a very, very low frequency because fear is a frequency of 100. It's much higher than guilt and shame and depression. So we've got to begin to look at our fears, begin to face our fears. And humanity as a collective, it is being invited to look at their fears. We had to, as a collective, look at our fears around the Holocaust. How could anybody have the power that Hitler had to kill so many people at one time? Well, we looked at that, but we didn't really do a lot with that. And what happened with those minds that could create that kind of terror in humanity? Well, they just separated and went to other places, many to the US. And then they've been working quietly and diligently for quite a few decades to create other things that then we went on to see that showed up in that pandemic that we experienced. And if you take the time to look at what happened, so much of what was created are remnants, if not direct descendants of what was started a long time ago by the very minds that created the Holocaust. that scientific way of looking at things, that desire to manipulate humanity, that willingness to do things that harm others, that continued on. Because when one operates in that mindset of I am better than everybody else, and I'm the chosen one and you're not, and I should get all the riches and not you. When you operate in that mindset of selfishness and greed, which is what the ego's all about, greed, right here, controlling, judgment, lies, all of this, keep people sick, keep the suffering going, and keep everything in a darkened veil. Well, it's because they're serving themselves. The ego's service to self. But when you begin to open your mind and you begin to see what has been happening, you cannot avoid looking at the history of humanity. Now, if somebody is operating at a frequency that they're on a trajectory where they're ascending, we're clear. We don't need to go back and look at the history because we already understand it. We recognize the potential of the evilness of the egoic mind, a mind that blocks God. So you don't need to study. You don't need to go down rabbit holes with reptilians and these races and all these things that have been suppressing humanity. You don't need to go down that path because you've already accepted, forgiven them, recognize, yep, that's possible. While we descend, anything dark is possible. And while we're ascending, we are recognizing that we have only one authority, and it is God, and we don't need to listen to even other angels or other beings. We're going directly to God. And God just tells us, love each other. Jesus told us what God said. Love God and love your neighbor, period. When you keep it simple, because salvation is simple, then that's all you are interested in. That's all you want to do. Was this thought loving to myself and others? Was this thought honoring the truth that I know about who we are? You go back over here. Am I experiencing abundance? Do I live in a tight, I got to hoard my money or hoard my stuff? Or do I believe in abundance? That my thoughts create my reality, that I always have what I need when I need it? Well, then you're operating in liberation. But if you're concerned about the market and what's going to happen to your investments, you're not free. You're listening to the ego, which operates in lack. I better protect mine because I don't want to lose it. Well, we have an opportunity to do what it says right here. You accomplished everything that you're experiencing because you wanted to. Now, are you ready to change that? Because if you're ready to change it, you have to have the courage to do things differently. Let's get into paragraph number 3. We got a little time here. So, no one who understands what you have learned, how carefully you learned it, and the pains to which you went to practice and repeat the lessons endlessly in every form you could conceive of them, could ever doubt the power of your learning skill. If you, stand on a soapbox about your particular religion, then we all know, wow, you're a good learner. You learned all those things in elementary school, in middle school, in high school. I'll speak about my indoctrination in the Catholic faith. I had specific things that I had to do. I had to learn all about. I wasn't old enough to know anything about it. I was baptized and I was a baby. But then I had to go through my elementary years, the catechism. I had to go through First Communion and rituals of, I had to learn this and prove that I knew it so I could move on to the next level. But also look at just school. You go to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, you got to do this and pass it and move on, or otherwise, you fail and repeat. So it's obvious that everybody here is a good learner, right? We can tell anybody who's defending something, they're defending what they learned. So very simple. It's easy to understand that everybody defends what it is that they believe that they know. So we know every human is a good learner. We don't need to doubt their learning skills. Sentence 2, there is no greater power in the world than the power of learning. The world was made by it, and even now depends on nothing else. We have to continually be learning what the ego wants us to know. The lessons you have taught yourself have been so overlearned and fixed, they rise like heavy curtains to obscure the simple and the obvious. Wow. Yes, we have taught ourselves. Why? Because we wanted to. We chose to accomplish being a human that is separate from God, that falls and descends into a very tiny idea of itself. We accomplished that. And we have learned things that are not true, that God is on a cloud somewhere out there. We can't count on God because God is busy with everybody else but us, that we have to work to prove who we are, that we're not good enough, that we're not worthy enough. We've had to work really hard to do that. And it has created this fixed understanding, overlearned it, that it rises like a curtain to obscure the simple and the obvious. You are the creator of your reality. You just took a role and have been so immersed in the role that now you think you are that one. You overlearned it. Now you're stuck thinking you are what you're not. But that's okay. God's not going to punish you. Say not, you cannot learn them. For your power to learn is strong enough to teach you that your will is not your own. Your thoughts do not belong to you, and even you are someone else. Your ability to learn that you took on your parents' political beliefs, your parents' religious beliefs, tells you your thoughts are not your own. You just accepted what was given to you by your parents. It tells you right here that your will is not your own. You're not doing what you really want to do or believe what you really want to be. You learn to believe what others taught you. We are at a time that humanity is poised to make a shift in timelines. Now, this is something that is super esoteric, way out there. This gets into quantum physics, meaning that when you understand you create your own reality, as you change your mind, your reality is going to change. Let me say that again. As you change your mind, your reality is going to change. So as we are believing that we're creators of our own reality and we want to create a happy dream, we want to create a life that is enjoyable, and you begin to change how you believe, how you see things, you are shifting to another timeline. Those who want to continue to believe, no, they have power over me. The government knows more than me. The medical establishment can put anything they want to put into me. I trust them. I believe them. You are choosing. Why? Because you're creating your reality. You're choosing to be a victim. You're choosing to be subjected to the control of others. So the external has authority over you because you want it to be that way. You're choosing not to see it differently. You're choosing not to ascend to the level of courage that allows you to question what you know. You are stuck in pride is below courage because you have to have pride. I know it. I'm right. I know everything. You got to move past pride to move into courage, which is maybe I don't know everything. If you are believing that the outside has power over you, you are solidifying that timeline for yourself. And we are at a point right now where we're about to make a flip on that spiral, where we're about to either go up or we're about to go down. We are right at that point of ascension or descension, because if you are believing the outside has power over you, you are not ascending. You can't. Ascension is for one who is moving to the place of, as it says in here, salvation is simple. I create it. That's it, period. I create it. And then when we take responsibility to say, I create it, then we have to choose. Am I going to create with God or ego? Am I going to create from lack or abundance? Am I going to create from fear or from love, from truth or from lies? Am I going to operate in transparency, well, in lies and darkness and secrecy, or am I going to operate in transparency and honesty and truth. We are at that point where we have to make a choice. And here's the thing. At a deep level, at the level of our soul's conscious awareness, we know that we're making that choice. As a matter of fact, our soul knows if we're going to descend or ascend. Our soul already has made that choice. We are here, and I say our soul because it's free will. We get to choose that. Either we are choosing to align with the choice to ascend, or by saying that's crazy talk, we are choosing to align with a choice to descend. There's no right or wrong. It's not good or bad. It's just simply a choice. Do you want expansion? Do you want contraction? Contraction comes with the experiences that it comes with. More suffering, more sadness, more anger, more frustration, more jealousy, more blaming, more victimization. That's what it has. Ascension comes with liberation and expansion and collaboration and communication and cooperation and co-creation. Those are the choices. If you want to have Chinese food, it's going to come with rice, and it's going to have, Szechuan choices, or it's going to have specific things, soy sauce, or, fortune cookies. If you want Italian, you're going to get pasta, you're going to get spaghetti sauce, you're going to get pizza, you're going to get mozzarella. That's what it comes with. You can't say you want Chinese and then get upset that they don't have, spaghetti sauce and pizza. It comes with what it comes. We are waking up. We are gaining the eyes to see. This is what happens when you make this choice. This is what happens when you make that choice. It's not good or bad. But the choices that we're making are based on our desire to either be complete with the egoic suffering, or to move into more of that suffering, deeper aspects of that suffering, more loss of freedoms. It's not good or bad. It is a choice because we have free will. A Course in Miracles was given to us over 50 years ago for these times, so that enough people had the time to study those teachings so that we could feel them in our bones, so that we can embody them and we could assist others who want to learn the same thing. Course in Miracles trains our minds to recognize that we are creators. It ends victimization. It ends suffering. It ends the idea that I am not who I am. It ends the lie that you are other than the magnificent, powerful creator that you are. Created by God to be a creator. In the image of a creator were we created to create, to expand creation. But it is creation itself to contract, because there has to be courage to be willing to experience that contraction. So all roles are perfectly good. They provide the contrast. Some are going to say, "Ooh, been there, done that. I don't want more of that. That's where I am. I want more of this." And that's an unknown to me, except that I do know that it's going to be a happy dream. So I'm excited for that adventure. And to have that adventure, I must be consistent with what I believe. And if I want to have that Italian meal, I know I'm going to get the pasta and the pizza and the sauce, and it's going to be there. How it's going to show up, where it's going to show up, who's going to serve it to me, I don't know. But I know I'm going to experience that which God says is possible, which is for me to experience peace and harmony and love and joy, because I'm going to be co-creating with those who already believe that, who know that. Why? Because we have learned that our mind needs to be trained, just as it was trained into forgetting our truth. We need to train it into remembering the truth of who we are. So it's exciting to co-create with those who want to be part of a happy dream. And as a matter of fact, I've created the Happy Dream Creators for that specific reason, to have the conversations that are about that, not about all that's wrong in the world. That's an old conversation for me. It's an important conversation for those who want to look at it and go, oh, I think I'm done with this. But we're not going to let go of that until we get to the point that we are ready to say, what do I want? What do I really want? If I'm the creator, I'm going to get clear about my choice, and I'm going to stick to that. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation today. We got through paragraphs 2 and 3. That's exciting. So this is episode 168. And next week, actually, we will not have Ascension with A Course in Miracles, because I wrote a chapter for a book. I just got my book day before yesterday. And I wrote a chapter in this. It's called The Gifts of Wisdom, Practices for Healing and Empowerment. There are 22 authors that were invited by my friend David McLeod. And I wrote, my chapter is, in my experience, When I Met God. It happened in 2007, and I've never put it in a formal format. I've talked about it, but I've never really put it out there in the detail that I did in this book, because I felt inspired that this was something that I needed to share with humanity. Not because, oh, look at me, I had a conversation with God, but because if I can do it, so can you. We're all capable of having a conversation with God. And that happened in 2007. So what's that? 17 years ago. And I'm still living into the truth that was shown to me. I still am grasping the concepts of my connection with all that is. The Kundalini experience that I had still continues to expand my consciousness, because it's so much that one finite mind can't grasp it all instantaneously. Even Jesus took him time to grasp and integrate the truths that he was learning. I mean, it took him quite a while, but once he knew the truth, then once you know it, it alters you. You show up differently in the world. So I have just been busy with this book, and next week there's an interview that I'm doing, and the time slot that they gave me coincides with our, when this call takes place. So I'm going to be doing that interview around the book, and we'll not be able to do the Ascension with A Course in Miracles next week, but it's just 1 week. We'll skip it. Thank you all so much for being here. It was so exciting to see some old friends that jumped in. And as always, please, if this touches you, if it means something to you, share it with others that you know might be curious and are looking for answers. I am here to share the truth that has set me free, continues to set me free, because it's just so fun to share this truth. Plus, I love these transmissions. What comes through me is just always exciting. All right, everybody. Love you, sweet brothers and sisters. Take care.